those who are watching at home and those here in the audience, this meeting is being recorded. I would invite those here in the audience to please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Right. So typically, we do start with public comment. I do not see anybody here in the public to make a public comment, but we could move into recognitions. If there are any recognitions that anybody has to make for this week. Okay. Then do we want to move into the superintendent's report?
Sure. I just need for Mike to get me on that screen. Ah, beautiful,
It's like
thank you.
magic.
Okay, so this is the superintendent's report for September 26, 2024. Tonight I have just 3 topics, a very brief discussion on where we are with all enrollment, the announcement that the high school has been named a National Banner School, and then I do have the Hopkinton Public Schools MCAS rankings that were released on Tuesday. I don't want anyone to get confused and think that this is the same thing as the in-depth report that Mr. Lebrad will do when he kind of dissects and analyzes all the data that comes to us. So in terms of enrollment, I show you this all of the time. If you take our current enrollment and you add all of these up, we're at 4141. Adding in the 96 students who are in the integrated preschool, we are currently at 4,237 students, which means we are about 53 students, well, we are exactly 53 students away from the projected enrollment of 4,290 that we anticipate reaching by June of 2025. The high school is a National Banner School. I will read to you what the email said, and then I will actually ask Mr. Bishop to talk about it because it's really fortuitous that he's here tonight. Congratulations to Hopkinton High School for once again receiving National Banner recognition from Special Olympics North America. Your school has been selected from a national certifying body for achieving national standards of excellence in the areas of inclusion, advocacy, and respect. The athletes, partners, students, coaches, volunteers, teachers, staff, and administration at Hopkinton High School have all played key roles in creating a social climate where everyone feels included and respected for who they are. So I know you're doing a special night.
Yeah, so it's certainly a great honor. It's actually our 4th year in a row that we've received this honor, which is pretty neat. We're one of 19 schools in the state and one of 202 in the nation that has earned this, which is pretty awesome. I want to thank our coaches, our athletes, our volunteers, the teachers, everybody associated with the program. I know, Chris, I saw you at the home opener of the Unified. It was great to see you there. They had another game today on the road in Dedham. I actually got a text message from the Dedham principal and said, your team is bigger than a football team. There was like 70 kids that showed up. It's awesome. So it's just such a wonderful program. So we're going to honor the group at a banner ceremony on October 15th. It's going to be during our Spirit Week. So we're going to publicize that. We're going to raise the banner, have a few people say a few words. It's a 5 o'clock game. It's usually right after school, but we wanted to have kind of more of a night game for our athletes. They're excited about that. And it's against our rival Ashland, which is pretty neat. So we encourage you all to come and be part of that ceremony. But yeah, it's to see the areas in which we're being honored, inclusion, advocacy, and respect. I mean, that's what we talk about all the time at the high school. So it's really nice to receive that honor. And shout out to everybody that's involved.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
So just our MCAS rankings across Massachusetts, and just so you are clear how these rankings are being done, this is the percentage of students who have either met or exceeded expectations in both ELA and math across grades 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 10. So grade 3 rankings. We were 6th in the state, and there were 7 schools in that top 6 ranking because, for example, sometimes at like number 3, there could be a tie. And in math, the 3rd grade came in 7th, and there were 8 schools at the top. In grade 4, ELA, we were 4th in Massachusetts with 5 schools at the top, and in math, those 4th graders were 6th in Massachusetts with 8 schools at the top. grade 5, has an awful lot to celebrate. They were third in ELA of the top 3 schools, and they were first in mathematics, which is really nice to see. They do so much work there with math instruction that you can see that it's paying dividends. In grade 6, our ELA students were 6th with 7 schools at the top, and in math, they were 2nd with 2 schools at the top. Also something to be very pleased with. ELA in grade 7, they were 9th with 21 schools at the top, and in math, they were 4th with 5 schools at the top. Grade 8 ELA, they were 8th with 16 schools at the top, and in math, they were 2nd with 3 schools at the top. And then finally, grade 10, English Language Arts, they were 3rd with 3 at the top, and in math, they were 4th with 8 at the top. So I am feeling really good about those rankings. There's an awful lot to celebrate there, and really, these scores come to us because our kids work so hard and our teachers work so hard, so thank you to them. And that is all I have for you.
Any questions? Do we want to jump ahead just to the school improvement plan for the high school? Is that
Sure, if you'd
good with
like.
you,
Yeah.
since you're already up here?
Yeah, that'd be great if you don't mind. Yeah, we'll jump right in. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for having me and for rescheduling. I know I had a conflict 2 weeks ago. So I'm excited to come here tonight to talk about our focus areas and how they relate to our school improvement plan at the high school. It's certainly a team effort. A lot of folks are part of developing the school improvement plan. I'm sure you've heard from my colleagues when they came 2 weeks ago. We have a school council that's a big part of creating the school improvement plan. It's a group of 25 parents, students, teachers, and administration. We meet 5 times throughout the course of the year and talk about areas we want to focus on. We also have the department heads that are part of the discussion, or SMLs we call them at the high school. The other 2 assistant principals, Mr. Palmerville and Ms. Tice, are part of the conversation, and of course, central office. So certainly a lot of folks, as well as students, getting feedback from them. As you can see from some of the MCAS results that Dr. Kavanaugh just showed, we're doing well in a lot of areas at the high school. We're very proud of the work that we're doing. But we had a conversation this summer and again at the first day of the school year about not being complacent and always trying to push forward and get better at what we do. And so there's always still areas that we can look at the data and say we're doing wonderful, but there's areas we can still look at and try to find areas in which we can improve upon. There's certainly some spots where we've identified in the school improvement plan that we're excited about working on. We have 2 kind of large goals with multiple action steps underneath them. So I'll start with the first one, which we're calling kind of meeting every student's needs in the classroom. That's kind of the idea of the goal. Our theory of action for this goal is that we continue to examine our data sources to update and revise our curriculum, assessments, and instructional practices. Then our students will have the opportunity to experience success, reach the desired levels of mastery, and feel greater sense of belonging. So our first kind of action to meet that needs of every student goal is the work that we've been doing with Blackprint. I'm sure you're familiar with that. We had an equity audit come in last May to the high school with the company called Blackprint. They met with students, staff, parents, administration, gathered a lot of feedback. And so we're excited about getting those formal results. We haven't actually got our hands on kind of the results yet. We're looking forward to doing that hopefully shortly. And part of our kind of success criteria on this goal is once we get that information, planning the proper PD to be able to kind of implement to positively impact our student experience, and also surveying the students and staff at the end of the year that they have a better understanding of the report and how it fits into what we're trying to do at the high school. So certainly more to come with that action step. Our second action step underneath this goal revolves around our continued focus on looking at data and analyzing student assessment data from a variety of different sources. In this case, we're kind of specifically looking at our AP exam, our MCAS scores, as well as our STAR work. And so some of the areas in which we're going to measure if we're meeting this goal, you kind of just saw up there some of our scores. We're hoping that in the 2025 MCAS, all 3 of our subjects, ELA, math, and science, will have 90% of our students receiving a score of meeting or exceeding and no students failing the exam. That's a lofty goal, but we're talking about meeting every student's needs. And I think we can do it. We talked to staff about it. This past year, we had 92% of ELA students meeting or exceeding, no students failed. Math, we had 88, no students failed, which is just amazing. And in science, we went from 83 to 88 in terms of meeting or exceeding. And so we're really going in the right direction. Obviously, every year it's a new group of students, right? But we have great teams at that level working together, looking at the curriculum. So it's a goal that we're shooting for, which we're excited about. In regards to the AP exams, we want all of our, so we have quite a few students take the AP exam. We had 624 take it last year, which is about 50% of our population. And so we want all of our students across the 26 different subjects in which they're taking the AP exam to score a 3 or higher, which is kind of passing, which we were pretty close. We had 94% of students this past year. So I think we're close. We can get there. So we want to push forward, see if we can get to that higher number. And we also want all of our exam averages to be above the national and state average. So that's something we really focus on. 96% of our exams this past year were above the state and national. So we're really close. Again, not trying to nitpick, but not trying to be complacent and trying to continue to kind of push forward to get to those higher numbers. So talk to our AP teachers, talk to our MCAS staff. Obviously, they're like, oh, 100%, that's a lot, but they're up for the challenge. They're excited about it. I think we're looking forward to kind of our work in that area. And the same goes with our STAR data, not necessarily as publicized as the AP results in MCAS, but certainly as valuable. Certainly in our math, in our ELA departments, we give STAR testing multiple times throughout the course of the year. And it's really for us and our data team to kind of look at what remediations, what placements will be appropriate for students, what additional supports they might need in the classroom. And so we've had our first installment already happen in math and ELA. We're looking forward to the next few to kind of take a look at the results, where they're going, how they're looking, and then plan those appropriate interventions for students. So that's kind of under the action steps of looking at student assessment data. And the third part of this first goal is more geared, I guess, towards the staff than it is to the students, but I do think if we do this at a high level, it'll have a big impact on our students. And that's our goal around peer observation. So we're really encouraging our staff to get into each other's classrooms. We think that's really important, especially outside of the discipline in which you teach. It was a goal of ours a few years prior to COVID, and it was really meant to kind of be a cultural builder and kind of get some practices from their colleagues, and maybe you have a student in your class that you're trying to connect with and you want to see them in another class to see how they're doing and how you can kind of reach that student in different ways. And so we got a lot of positive feedback from that. And we've had some turnover since COVID, so I think it's time to kind of go back to that goal. So we're meeting with every staff member, Mr. Palmerville, Ms. Tyson and I right now, talking about their goals for the upcoming year. And unless they have a set professional practice goal, we're really encouraging them to get into each other's classrooms. So we have a number of staff members already excited about that collaboration, building that trust, the respect that we keep talking about at the high school. And so we'll survey the staff at the end of the year, the ones that pick this as a goal, to see if they're feeling like they've built better relationship with colleagues outside of the department, what they took away from those classes and how they incorporated it into their curriculum. So that's a goal we're really excited about. So along those lines, our second kind of goal, I would say the theme is around building a community of respect and collaboration. Our theory of action is that if we continue to examine data sources to amplify student voice and choice, as well as self-advocacy skills, then students will employ more agency in the learning, build better relationships, demonstrate a healthier level of school-life balance, which is so important for us at the high school, and continue to contribute to their community in a positive way. So our first kind of action step to reach that goal, we talked a little bit about student assessment data. We also have a lot of student climate data, which I also feel is as important, if not almost more important in some ways. And we get that from our school climate surveys, from the HSA, the Holistic Student Assessment that every student takes, the Metro West Adolescent Health Survey that we do every 2 years, as well as our Pathways After Graduation Survey, which I'll talk about in a moment. I think you all know we focus on SEL and the mental health of our students very much at the high school, so we've seen some really good survey results in these categories. I opened up the staff meeting this year on the first day of school highlighting some of the data that we got when it came to the climate survey, just to show the staff like the things that we're doing are working and going in the right direction. But again, if you dig a little bit deeper, there are areas where we still want to focus on. And so the measurable criteria around this action is within the Metro West Adolescent Health Survey, which we do every 2 years. So we took it in November of 2023. We won't take it again until November of 2025. So we have some time to make some gains there, hopefully. Areas in which the numbers were a little higher than we'd like to see was around our female population, actually reporting that they are feeling very stressed over the last 30 days. Overall, our numbers were lower than the years past at 20%, but 31% of females reported that. So we want to get that number down a little bit. So I've already worked with our wellness department, talked about what can we do within our curriculum And so those are things we're going to be focusing on, as well as our female population reporting that they have depressive symptoms over the past 12 months. That number is at 20%. Overall, it was lower when you consider the male results and compared to other communities in the area, but still it's higher than I would like to see it. So we want to really work on that. Another area is that climate survey that we send out to students twice a year. We send it middle of the year and end of the year. Questions about how we're doing as an administration, what can we improve upon. One question we ask is, do you feel safe at school? Do you feel emotionally safe at school? And one is, do you have an adult in addition to your counselor that you feel knows you well and that has your best interests in mind? And 85% of students last year said that was the case, both times. And so that's great. I would like to see it a little bit higher. We're in the business of building relationships with kids and getting to know them and helping them along the process. So we all talked about trying to move that a little bit higher to the 100% number if possible. Again, that's lofty, but it's something we really want to focus on. So that's another area in which we will assess to see how we're doing. We have the third part of this goal is around the Pathways After Graduation survey. So you may be aware of this, but we have partnered with a researcher to survey our graduates, the class of 2023 and the class of 2024, about their experience at school or whatever it is that they're doing, work, military. And we had a pretty good number of students respond to that survey in the class of 2023. So we have some good data, all types of topics from academics, were you prepared, social life, mental health, are you receiving the supports that you need at college? I could share this survey with you, a lot of questions on it. But one area that I was particularly interested in was, how prepared are you compared to your peers when it comes to being at that next level, mostly college. And 92% of our students said they were prepared or very prepared, which is good. But again, we're in that 90 range. We can pat ourselves on the back. That's great. But we still want to kind of push to make sure that we're preparing it even more so than their peers in other areas. So that's an area that we're going to hopefully see increase as well. We've also, I think I came talking about handbook changes at the beginning of the year. We've added some different things to try to have positive impacts on the learning environment for students and staff. We've added vape detectors in our bathrooms. And I can tell you that they work. And we have a cell phone policy that we're really committed to, that students will put the phone in the phone holder during the class. And we've received quite a bit of positive feedback on both of those from students and parents as well, and staff. So we're hoping that that continues, but we do want to survey the kids at the end of the year to see how much it has had an impact on their experience. I have a principal's cabinet meeting tomorrow with 20, 11th, and 12th graders, and that's going to be the first question I'm going to ask. How is that going from your end, and what are you hearing, and what can we improve upon? So I'm interested to see if that's going to come out in a positive way, which I hope it will. And the last aspect of this goal is around the HSA data. I know you've heard about that before. We administer that twice a year. It's a holistic student assessment. We have the date set for the fall. It's going to be on the 24th of October. And so we'll get those results back. Usually it goes straight to the counseling department, who then will work with students that might need additional support based on the results that we get. And then the last part of this second goal is around creating more opportunities for career exploration for post-secondary options, maybe students that might not be going off to a 2 or 4 year college. We have 94% of our students generally go off to 2 or 4 year colleges. But on that survey that we sent out to students, that 5% felt like they weren't that prepared to apply for a job or to go through that process of finding a job. And so we really want to kind of do a better job. I just came here from our senior parent night. We had almost a pack house in the auditorium, which was great. And I was watching Ms. King, who is our new director of counseling, talking about the application process, but also talking about other options for students. And kind of defining that, what is success in your family? It doesn't always have to be the Harvards, the Yales. There's a lot of different things out there for students. And so we're going to put a lot of effort into that through the MyCap, which is the My Career and Academic Plan that the DESE has put out. We put a committee together working on that, helping students find different pathways for them. So we're hoping that at the end of the year I can come back and tell you that students feel a little bit better about other post-secondary options that might not be a 2 or 4 year college. And we also have, and I'll wrap it up here, I know I've talked a while here, I'm sorry. We also have a senior capstone, which some of you may be aware of. At the end of senior year, many students take part in, from the Monday after April vacation through graduation, in a month-long kind of work study. They go out and they find a passion, and they come back and report on it for a month worth of work. I would say it's gone post-COVID up to about 80% of the senior class is doing a senior project. We have it in the athletic center. It's almost like a college fair. People from the community can walk around. Students can walk around, ask questions. It's really a wonderful program. We're hoping that it's with the junior class right now that every student partakes in that and gets an opportunity to kind of close down school when it comes to April vacation and really dig into something they're passionate about. And so that's going to be something we're going to do a lot of work this year to hopefully be able to have that be the case for the current juniors at the end of their senior year. So that's more of like a 2-year goal. So a lot of stuff in there. Sorry to throw so much data at you, but it's exciting stuff. We're doing really well in a lot of areas, but certainly some stuff that we can continue to improve upon. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you have about the improvement plan.
Thank you.
What is a climate survey?
Yeah, so a climate survey is a survey that we've created, actually with help from some of our psychology teachers and a person who actually kind of reviews surveys and is part of creating them. So we've sent some questions to them, and they've given us some feedback over the years. And it's for us to get a sense of how things are going. Get a dipstick of, are things going well, are they not going well? Are you feeling, I know I mentioned, are you feeling physically and emotionally safe at school, but there's all types of questions. We'll ask about, the new school rules. Do you feel like you have a voice in decision-making at the high school? Oh, boy. It's probably like 20 to 25 questions. Google Doc, we send it out on a flex block. We ask kids, not mandatory, but take it if you want to. We get a lot of kids that respond. And then there's also boxes where they can kind of type in responses, which is helpful for us. And we usually take that information and try to set a goal around it so the kids just don't think it's like, oh, they're not listening to us. We want them to feel heard. And so we try to cover a lot of different topics, but some of it will be related just to this improvement plan to say, you want us to improve. So, yeah, it was created internally, used twice a year, middle of the year, end of the year.
Gotcha.
Yep.
And so you said 30% of the high school girls feel. I forget what-
They said that they felt very stressed in the last 30 days. Yep.
Do we have comparative data from prior years or other high schools?
Yeah.
A lot of them.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so we have the Metro West Adolescent Health Survey, goes back all the way to the early 2000s. So every 2 years, we have that data. So that number is lower than years past.
The 30% is lower.
Yeah, but still higher. Yeah. So overall, if you look at the number, they break it down by school versus other schools around the Metro West area, which is interesting to see. But then it breaks down grade, gender.
Yeah.
And so you can really dig into the data. On the surface, when we looked at our numbers, it was really good. But then when you start to look at the breakdown of like, where's the stress coming from? Is it juniors, usually, right? Sometimes freshmen, it depends on the question that they're asking. They talk about bullying, they ask questions about bullying. They ask questions about physical activity. It's an interesting survey. And so I always enjoy getting that feedback back and trying to look at areas we can improve upon. And so that's going to be another topic I'm going to bring up tomorrow at Principal's Cabinet about, like, what do we think this is? How can we address it? We do things like flex block and homework-free weekends to try to address that, but there's got to be more that we can do.
Right.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yep.
Okay, great, thanks.
Is that something you discuss with your faculty too?
Yes.
Like what is
Yeah.
causing that? Because it's a very specific group. Does it pan out to be a specific, like, age, grade level?
Yeah, so that particular question around being very stressed, I can pull it, actually, I might have it, the results here on my computer. I think if I remember correctly, it was, the numbers was highest, even the 30% was the average across the 4 grades. I want to say it was a spike junior and senior year. Yeah, and I think that's probably.
Academic pressure.
Academic pressure, the post-secondary, I mean, that is
Probably
still.
depending on the time it was given. too.
Exactly, right,
Be in the
right,
middle
exactly.
of.
That's November when applications are being sent in or decisions are coming back. So
Yeah.
there's definitely, you can dig into like when we sent this and why that might be the case, totally. But still, areas in which that's, I'd like to see that lower and like to support the students. If they're feeling that way, how can we help them kind of deal with that stress?
High school's come a long way since I was in high school. No one would have cared what I thought, or any of the kids I went to high school. It's
Isn't
interesting.
it wonderful how
Yeah,
much better
no,
we are?
Yeah, no, it's really interesting.
When you talk about the wellness staff, because I'm from the Stone Age, was that the, what we called the health teachers back in the day?
I guess it would be the PE and health teachers, yes.
Yeah,
Yep.
okay.
Yep, we call them wellness teachers. They do a little bit of both. They do classroom, they do fitness center, they do athletic center activities. And a lot of our conversations around some of these topics happen freshman and sophomore year when they come into the high school. The kids do take a wellness class all 4 years.
Okay.
Yeah, it's important.
I really appreciate the focus on other options for post-secondary. I think that's, we've seen how valuable it is and how important it is and how many people are feeling that they have to go to college, and that's just not the case.
Yeah, yeah.
So I really appreciate that we're
Yeah,
giving that support to kids.
yeah, it's important.
So one question I had about, you talked about you're surveying the students who, whether they feel prepared or very prepared. Are you able to correlate that to what schools they are chosen, what majors they're chosen? Like,
Yeah,
I know kids are going into high math programs are not feeling it.
Yeah, that's a good question. So the work is being done through a researcher that we're collaborating with. So I think they can get that information for us if we ask for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that would be really interesting.
Yeah, I agree. And we're hoping to do this current, so the group that's 1 year out right now, that just is either in their fall semester of college or just beginning work or military, we're hoping to survey them in May to see the difference between this year and last year. And then we're also considering maybe following the class of 2023 all 4 years. You know,
That'd be great.
and some of the things we're interested in is like the transfer rate. You know, are they going someplace else? Why is that the case? Is it social reasons? Is it fit? Is it academics? Like those things, just so we can help prepare families and students to make the best decisions when they
Right,
graduate.
yeah.
Yeah.
When your teachers are going out to do observations and other, do they have some kind of instrument they use?
Yeah, so we don't really want it to be evaluative. So,
Right.
yeah, so we don't want there to be like, I'm going to go in and take notes
Oh,
and give
yeah.
feedback. It's just more about kind of seeing other strategies. Maybe you do a really good do now to start the class that I even thought about, to get the kids up and moving and get them active, and I can take that back into my class. Or maybe, you know, Susan's been a real pain in my class. I heard they like your class. I'd love to go see kind of how you're interacting with them. Maybe there's a technique you're using that I'm not. So those are the types of things. And it's usually like you can pick. If teachers come to me and say, I'm looking for someone that differentiates really well, then I have a list of people in my head. I'm like, ooh, that person does it really well. You're free that period. Why don't you have you go see that person?
Okay, that's great.
Yeah, so there's a little bit of like a structure, but not too formal.
Right.
And only people are comfortable with it. But it's one of those things when people start to hear about it, I do hope that it's like, oh, I want that. I want to go see that. And it also gives our veteran teachers who are tremendous, who are at the middle or end of their career, it allows some younger folks to go in and take a look at some of the good things that they're doing, you know, and kind of remind them that, you know, we're not in a profession you're going to get all these bonuses the better you do and the data you get, but like you can take that next generation of teachers and kind of take them under your wing, which I think is super important.
One thing, and I've heard you say it other years when you've come at this point, that I really appreciate is that you're not just comfortable sitting back and appreciating where we are and what we've accomplished, but in trying to find more, trying to figure out the different little corners of pockets of places where we could be better, even in things that 100% seems like a really high goal for anything, but that you're looking at pushing forward that way and reaching all of the students and looking at things like alternative paths. I appreciate that, and I know that it serves our students very well.
Thank you. Support.
I think we're good. We need a motion, though, is that?
Oh,
Yes.
I move to approve the high school improvement plans for 2024 and 2025.
I second.
Motion by Jamie, second by Susan. All those in favor?
Aye.
It's unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you very
Nice
much.
to see you.
Great job.
Awesome, thank you.
Thank you.
Have a nice evening.
Going to circle back to the school committee chair report, just to say that school committee payroll warrant S25005 and S25006 have been approved. Warrants 25-016S, 25-017S, 25-018S, 25-019S, 25-020S, 25-021S, 25-022S, and 25-023S have all been approved. Warrants have been included in the folder. Are there liaison reports?
I missed my first youth commission meeting because it coincided with third grade curriculum night. But I look forward to the next one.
ESBC, we had a meeting Tuesday? Tuesday. Things are going good, under budget.
10% under budget.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, what percent?
10%.
10% under.
10%? 1%.
Yeah. not
1%,
10. Yeah, not
sorry.
10,
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
yeah. I was like, whoa.
Close.
But still, 1% on
To
the
go back to
number
the high
that
school
big.
math.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
okay.
So everything's good there.
That's great.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, then we're going to move down.
Oh, should we talk about, no, I
Okay.
guess I just went, there was CPAC event last week? whatever, meet the administrators
Yeah.
for special
Oh, yes, I was
education.
gone.
There was about 15, 20 families, would you say, Superintendent? Yeah.
Oh, excellent.
There, it was good, and a lot of time for the families to talk to their school's administrator personally, get personal advice, get, really create a connection with them outside of the IEP meeting, which is really great experience.
That's great. Was there any sense if they were families that are newer coming into connecting with CPAC?
Yes,
That's
there
great.
were, I think there were some newer families. Although, there were families also on the upper ends that have
Yeah.
been around for a while, but new to a new school, middle school, high school, or there was a family that's getting ready for college, what is that going to look like, transition?
In those connections between, I think are important between families that are newer to the entire CPAC, but also to the
We had
IEP process.
some preschool students and family, well, not students, family.
Okay. All right,
It's good.
thank you. All right, the Hopkins Lower Middle School.
Chris, are you there? Chris, can you hear? Can you hear us?
I am. I've been watching you on YouTube because the feed's not coming through, so I'm gonna pause that, and hopefully you guys can hear me.
Yes.
We can hear you.
We can hear you.
Okay, yeah, I have the audio. So I'm here tonight to talk about insurance. I know you're all thrilled. We're at the point where the new addition is about to begin sprouting out of the ground with the foundation. And at this point, typically we begin the builder's risk insurance policy. Builder's risk is a specialized insurance policy that is specifically for buildings under construction. Buildings under construction have unique risks, and the way that insurance generally works and construction finance generally works is once you pay the requisition, the town owns the products that are on site and that they have paid for, and so you want to insure those against potential loss. This becomes a little more complicated when you're dealing with an existing building addition because you also have the potential for the in-construction building to affect the existing building. And it's also further complicated by the fact that the existing building is occupied throughout construction. So working with MIIA, the town's insurer, since February, we've been working to get a quote for a policy to take over or to take the building off their regular schedule of insurance and insure the building specifically with the builder's risk insurance. They initially went through their preferred vendor and secondary market, and both declined to take up the policy for the risks that I mentioned, such as, there's a wood frame structure, it's an occupied building, as well as an addition and renovation. Ultimately, they ended up with the proposal that's before you tonight, which came from Atlantic Specialty Insurance Company. It is a proposal for, of course, that's the one number I did not write down in front of me, $245,624. It would cover the 32 million of the construction, 20 million for the existing building, and 7.2 million of the soft costs, for a total insured value of $60,297,761. And we've compared this to what we had budgeted for the amount, which was $170,000. We have seen across all of our projects a dramatic increase in the cost of builder's risk over time. And as a result, we did see this premium come in higher than we forecast, but the project continues to have ample contingency in order to cover it. The original design phase had $95,738 of owner's contingency remaining. And so with this transfer of $75,624 to the builder's risk insurance category. We would still have 20,000 of that original owner's contingency remaining in the budget, and we still have 250,000 from construction authorization owner's contingency. Now, that contingency from our conversation when I was last with you is completely separate from the construction contingency that's used for change orders, as well as separate from the CM's contingency that's part of the authorization that you voted on when I was last with you. So we still have 2.9 million for construction contingency, and the budget remains in a healthy place even with the authorization of this insurance policy tonight. If you have any questions, I'm happy to entertain them. And with that, I'll turn it over to you for any questions you might have.
Couple, so MIA is the current insurer for the
It's
middle,
the-
for,
It's the
not the middle school.
insurance broker that the town uses. They hold all of the town's insurance policies. And so when we began this process, we were asked to work with them to obtain the policy.
Gotcha, so, and they, because during the construction, the renovation, the addition, the coverage the school has is paused, and that's why we need this supplemental insurance. Is that-
So what
What
happens
happens
is, it's typically carried by the town, the existing building.
Yeah,
When you're doing construction, you go out for this builder's risk, so it comes off the town existing building and shifts onto this policy.
okay, and so the town policy gets paused, so to, is that, I don't know if that's,
Correct.
okay, so the
That is
town.
correct.
And I assume that pausing triggers that coverage and what the town pays, there's some type of refund or rebate, or if that policy's on pause for, I assume, the length of the construction,
That's correct.
do we get that money?
That would be on the town side, so.
Okay, but
they
the-
would-
okay.
So basically, the cost for that insurance does shift to the project and would come off of the town operating budget.
Okay.
That's correct.
All right, so we're not paying twice.
We're not
All
paying
right,
twice.
got it, okay. Thanks.
Any other questions? Right, if that's the case, we'd seek a motion, and the amount I know is $245,624. There's a blank in there.
Motion to approve builder's risk insurance policy for the Hopkins School and related construction in the amount of $245,624.
Motion by Jamie, is there a second on that? Second by Kyla. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, it's unanimous. Thank you so much, Chris, for bringing that forward tonight.
Thank you. Thank you
you're
for
welcome.
letting me join remote.
Absolutely.
So many days you can be.
Good night. All right, so that brings us down into item C, which is the intent to travel.
Okay, thank you. So I'm looking for your approval for the music department, specifically Mr. Hay and Mr. Brody, to take students across grade levels, all 9 to 12, on an overnight out-of-state field trip. They will be going from Saturday, February 1st to Sunday, February 2nd. And you can see that the purpose of the trip is really to learn more about musical theater and to experience a live performance with the New York Philharmonic. So a really nice trip for those kids.
Sounds great.
Great. Any questions on that?
I'm just curious, do the students have an option to not have 4 kids in a room?
So
think
I
it said
don't
triple
know the answer
No, I
to that,
thought
but
it
I
was- I thought there was
imagine that they
triple-
do
there's
because it
triple or
does
quad.
say triple, quad, yeah.
And then, I'm just curious, I know when I played hockey, we're stuffed 4 in a room. We didn't have a choice or an option. I was just curious, do they have?
They might have
might,
that
yeah.
choice if there's a group of 3 that all want to kind of room together.
Yeah, I get that, but yeah, okay, I was just curious.
I think
It
in
is
past
kind of general
overnight,
world.
Yeah.
overnight trips
Yeah,
that
it's like-
have happened in the past, I know we haven't done as many of the, like, because the 8th grade trip doesn't run anymore, but they have not had that option
Yeah.
for like the 8th grade trip in the past.
Yeah.
Unless they just happen to luck out.
Yeah, I was just curious. But looks like a great trip. I've seen 2 of those shows, Aladdin and Back to the Future. Those were great, so sounds like a good trip.
Yeah.
there anybody that would like to make a motion on that?
I move to approve the travel to New York City for high school music.
Motion by
Second.
Jamie, second by Chris. All those in favor?
Aye.
And it's unanimous. Thank you for bringing that forward. And that brings us into the FY26 capital plan. There it is. Okay, so this is the capital plan for fiscal year '26. What we do typically is we show the next 5 years of the capital plan. We do put together a capital plan for 10 years, and we do submit that to the town for a presentation. We just kind of keep it condensed. But what the school committee is looking at for tonight really is fiscal year '26 and what those requests are for '26. So when you go down the list here, you can see the capital replacements for these years goes from 2.5 million to 3.1 to 2.2, 1.1, 825,000, and 3.8. The strategy with these replacements is obviously to spread them out over fiscal years. And when we have a large project, such as in 2031, which are the roof replacements for the high school, we try not to put any other projects in that same year, just to make it more palatable for the community. So looking at FY '26, we're looking at HVAC district-wide at $735,000, storefront entry doors for $200,000, a sewer pump cover for $60,000, technology for $100,000, and under enrollment growth, the adaptive playground for $1.5 million. Looking at the HVAC district-wide, this represents units in both the middle school and the high school, as well as a feasibility study for a sustainable replacement plan in the high school. As a reminder, the high school has 14 units and the middle school has 8 units with the replacement cost above the $25,000 threshold. These units are all, we use a life expectancy of 30 years. Therefore, the replacement is spread out over several years. The storefront, the entry doors, this is a replacement for the entry doors for the middle school. This is on the water tower side of the building. And these are 2 sets of double doors that have heavy use. Not only is it for school use, but community use for the gyms, town meeting, all of those uses come through these entry doors. So the frames are corroded and there's large gaps between the doors. So this is kind of a way of working around the building and getting at some of these storefront issues. The sewer access cover, this is in the driveway behind the high school and the bus lot access. And you can see the damage that has happened over time. The sewer pump is down in a chamber below those doors, so these doors need to be replaced. Technology for $100,000. This is looking at updating the existing firewall appliances, and they are located at the high school. The systems need a larger capacity to help manage heavier network traffic and to help with the expansion of the new Charleswood School and the Hopkins addition. Current firewalls have 10 gigabyte links and will be moving to 25 gigabyte links in the new system. In addition, we'll be expanding the core switch capacity at the high school to accommodate additional growth, as well as updates to the AV capacity at the high school auditorium and press box. The adaptive playground has a placeholder of $1.5 million. As a reminder, town meeting in May of '24 approved the use of CPC money for the design, study and engineering
for the adaptive playground. An adaptive playground committee was formed to guide the direction of the process, hire a designer, and seek community input. Working with the design group Beta, the committee chose the location of the Marathon School after a process that began with 198 town-owned parcels. The survey was sent to community to seek input on the design and elements for the playground, and Beta is taking all the input from the committee and the survey to develop designs for the playground. And this project will again be submitted to the CPC for potential funding. And that grant is due to the CPC October 10th. To give you an idea of the schedule that we worked through for the adaptive playground, so in July is when the designer was hired. So there, we had a project kickoff meeting with the designer, Beta. In August, the committee met to look at all of those sites and put together some type of criteria and finally make that site selection. So here we are in September. The committee has looked at different landscape analysis and early thoughts of the site that was selected, which is the Marathon School. In October, we'll be receiving design concepts based on the information, and in November, hopefully, we'll be looking at some construction documents. So again, looking at the site that has been selected, this is an aerial view of the Marathon School. You can see the box around the area that has been chosen for the adaptive playground. So the question is, what is adaptive or inclusive playground? It is, and these are put together by Beta, our designer. So we are looking at something that is accessible to all, designed for children of all abilities to play together. A universal design features ramps, accessible paths, ground level play areas. Sensory rich, offers varied sensory experiences like textures, sound, and movement. Encourages social play, promotes interaction and cooperation among all children. Safe and supportive, provides secure, barrier-free environments, with quiet spaces for retreat. So some of the thoughts around what could be done with that area that we're looking at the Marathon School. So you can see one of the circles as a potential location for the playground, kind of enhancing around the asphalt area that already exists. And over here where it says incorporate diverse swings, this is the existing playground that is there for Marathon now. And we're also looking at an area that is close to the building as potentially a quiet space and more seating areas for the playground for students. Another area is just the flip side of that lawn with the same idea. And the last thought is creating somewhat of a playground that surrounds both sides of the grass in the middle. And just as a reminder, the grass area is used for PE classes and regular school classes in addition to recess. So this is another thought that would put the playground on both ends with the inclusion of a sensory path that could connect all different areas of that back area. So some of the play elements that the committee looked at in their last meeting and were able to vote on, it, again, to give feedback to Beta in terms of which elements to include, not include, and this is where we'll start to see some designs as they take this information back. So some of the things are different elements: a basket swing, an adaptive swing, or a high back swing, a wide slide, a roller slide, or an inclusive loop slide, an inclusive climbing net, inclusive spinner, or a spinning bowl. Social play elements that we looked at were a playhouse, a wooden playhouse, a group play space or a stage, then different play boards, if you will, tic-tac-toe, some kind of sensory games, cooperative puzzles, and educational panels. Inclusive play elements, color sensory path, a texture sensory path, or a nature texture sensory path, inclusive seesaw, inclusive spinner chair, inclusive carousel, and just a quiet space. And some more play elements that we looked at, a nature sensory table, exploration log, a wood climbing area, butterfly garden, boulder climbing area, bird habitat, nature education panel, nature shade area, and an archaeological exploration area. So that just gives you an idea of all the many, many elements that we will be considering at our next meeting that Beta will be pulling together for possible inclusion into the playground.
And by our meeting, you mean the school committee or the adaptive playground meeting?
The adaptive playground meeting.
Questions on?
Are they also thinking about incorporating shade over some of those things? Because like that is a very sunny area.
So shade is one of the elements that was brought out many, many times in the community survey and also by the adaptive playground
Great.
committee. So yes. One of the interesting pieces, a shade element is unbelievably expensive. Because
Guess that.
you wouldn't guess it, but what happens is it basically becomes a wind sail. So the footings and the grounding that you need for the install become very substantial as opposed to just putting in a swing set. So those are elements that we have to kind of balance with budget as well.
Right. I know there's so many kids who are so sensitive to bright and heat.
Oh, agreed.
and-
Agreed.
In terms of, and I appreciate all that I know goes into getting to this point with the capital plan. The adaptive playground and looking at, much work obviously has been done and brought us to this point. Has any work been done with the CPC to communicate with them ahead of time, or is that just not, do they not want to talk until the grant, until it's submitted?
Well, for the grant specifically, that, like, I don't even have that application.
Yeah.
There is a member that is a CPC representative that is part of
Okay.
the Adaptive Playground Committee. I have also sent communications, just updates
Yep.
to the chair of the CPC, so they knew where we were at this point, especially when it came to the selection of the location, because that was something that the committee did a lot of work on to choose where the playground would be located.
That's great. Are there any other questions on that? Okay. Any questions on any of the capital plan?
No, I thought it was great that in your report that you noted the HVAC and the entry doors, really focusing on the high school, middle school, because we have other building projects going on in a brand-new Marathon school, so we're not already replacing those. I think it's important for the public to understand that.
And appreciate the way that the HVAC and the other replacements are done on a cycle, so that it's not
Right.
hitting as much as it feels like a lot when you look at anything like that. If we were doing the entire thing, it would be obviously significantly more. So I appreciate how thoughtful your approach is year over year.
And the CPC money for the adaptive playground, that wouldn't be coming out of the school, but like we're anticipating that that's being covered by CPC. That's why it says CPC.
Well, I note that it is CPC because I will apply for the grant.
Right. We just
There-
don't know yet.
We don't know that it would be accepted by the CPC. So there's always that
Right.
question mark. So we will submit the capital plan as it is hoping that we will be funded for the playground that way.
If we do get funded by CPC, would you push the Loop Road up a year or just hold on to the 1.5 and?
So the Loop Road, we're still hoping that potentially.
Or anything else? I just didn't know, do you just? if we
No,
get-
we would keep it as it is.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, we're trying to stay very light unless it's something that is, absolutely needed,
Yeah.
like roofs.
Yeah.
I know the CPC has a time where you can come and talk about projects. If your representative on the committee would like one of us to also join them to help express the need for this, I'd be willing to help.
Thank you.
And I think that typically we do have some school committee
Yeah, right.
representation there. It has not, it's been a challenge thus far. It has been passed over 2 years previously. This year, coming with a concrete plan, I think put this in a different place. It was what they seemed to be looking for last year. It's possible, I'm assuming, because I've seen it with other projects, that they would fund a portion of it, but not the whole thing. And then it would be dependent on making sure we can get town funding for the rest, but.
Right, yeah. So it will be a challenge. We won't have exactly the design by the time I need to apply for the grant. So the next adaptive playground meeting is about 2 weeks after the grant is due. So there'll be a timing where hopefully by the time CPC has their hearing,
Right.
I'll have something more definitive in hand.
And they haven't given dates on hearings yet, have they?
No. As I said, I don't even have the application at this time. I just
Fair.
know the date that it's due.
Yeah. All right, well, that's good for now.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, that moves us then into school committee goals. So just for a little bit of a historical perspective, we've only actually done school committee goals for a couple of years. It was something we started, we did it in the summer of the first year. We had, as a committee, worked with a consultant from, Tony Bent's from MASS, or is he still, I know he works as a
He's-
consultant, but he's
He's a
connected.
member of MASS, yeah.
But does a lot of work with other districts. So, one of the things in looking at goals is it has to be things that we can do ourselves that don't add to, it's something that the school committee under our purview we can do. So in terms of, can you pull up the district
Yes.
improvement piece? Because I think that's.
Okay, so I can
That would be
just
right.
quickly
Yep,
run through
go
that?
through quick.
Okay, surely. So when we did the district improvement plan, we have sort of 3 big buckets to fill. One is to plan for enrollment growth. Another is to make sure that we are meeting every student's need. I know you saw that tonight when Mr. Bishop was here. We really do adhere to the all means all. All really can mean all means all, every student, every day. We've altered that mantra just a little bit each year, but inevitably, we really believe that we need to make sure that every student is reaching their fullest potential in the Hopkinton Public Schools. And then the third is building a community of respect and collaboration. We have a rationale for each one of those, and so the rationale for enrollment growth says that with predictions of reaching over 5,000 students by the 2030-2031 school year, the Hopkinton Public Schools continue to focus on growing our physical plants and extracurricular spaces, bringing new and renovated schools online in the next few years. Responsibly, our construction projects are focused on accommodating future growth as well as ensuring the environmental health of the community. Accordingly, the schools must use budgeted resources wisely to provide the highest quality, innovative education for all students, flexing programs to ensure equity and access as student profiles demand. Fortunately, beyond our campuses lies a community of invested stakeholders. Under meeting every student's needs, the rationale is that the Hopkinton Public Schools see each child as an individual learner and human being. It's imperative to note that Hopkinton's student profiles are diversifying, resulting in broader student needs. Academically, we center first on learning foundational skills within a community, gradually introducing more diverse pathways as students mature near graduation. We pledge an investment in student social, emotional, behavioral, and physical wellness, and we commit to growing programs that help all students access challenging curricula with the hope to graduate well-balanced young adults who take risks, think independently, believe in themselves, and persevere. And then the last, under building a community of respect and collaboration, while it might be easy to focus on academic successes alone, the Hopkinton Public Schools believe in helping children develop a capacity for kindness, respect, compassion, and service to others. We believe in collaborative learning and fostering the growth of relational competencies. Students must understand how others live and build relationships across race, class, gender, and learning abilities to create caring learning communities. Every member of our community is expected to model these behaviors. We engage in this work, believing that the ends are best met when we also have strong relationships between families and schools. And so those are the things that our administrative team has sort of refined each year.
And then can you pull up?
And I can go to the school committee goals.
This was also in the packet, so, but I wanted just to pull it up for sake of discussion. So these are the goals that we did last year. We can change them, we can adapt them, or, change them in any way, change to different goals. The one tenet is it should be in alignment, that we're moving in the same direction as the district improvement plan, but
How did it go from last year?
so, the SMART goal piece of it was I think was where the details were. We did a mid-year check-in. It felt like we were definitely in the right, on the right track. It felt like there's work still to be done on some of the things. The budget piece obviously is something that we face every year. I think this year's budget is probably going to be at least a little bit more challenging than last year's budget. So that's, the one thing that we didn't do at the regular pace that we had talked about doing was office hours. That was something that the year before we had worked on. We did more office hours. We did a listening series, which was largely by Zoom, where we did a series of 7 or 8 where people came in we targeted different groups, different weeks, and everybody was welcome, but we'd pick a topic. One week, it might have been like special education and trying to listen and hear from stakeholders what they thought on that, what they were hoping to see from us.
I think that would be really good to have.
The listening, yeah.
Absolutely.
I'm very interested in that.
Yeah, I think the timing is always the hard thing. It's, I think in an ideal world, we'd all be able to be there for as many as possible. The sweet time that we found when we did do them regularly was a Sunday evening, because I think people tend to be out more on other evenings, but I don't know what people's schedules are like. We don't have to set the dates if we want to do a listening series right now, obviously. But we could put that in as we want to do that, and we can work out the details of it kind of at a off further down the line.
You said you did them
2
during
years ago.
COVID. Did you do any that were live?
They were live on Zoom. Oh, you mean
no,
in person? So
in
we
person,
didn't.
yeah.
The listening series was always done on Zoom.
Okay.
We did office hours that we did in person. The office hours we didn't do as a group of 5. We did it intentionally as like groups of 2, so that it would be like 2 people would go. We went to the farmer's market a couple of times. We did like at the Spoon or something like that, where we would have 2 people and then invite people to come in and just come over and talk and share their ideas, ask questions about us, and then report back to the whole group for that piece.
That sounds
And-
good too.
Yeah, and those were not set times and dates. The idea was we were trying to catch people where their schedules were, so that while Sunday might have, at the time, been good for the committee, there were some people that a daytime was better, or some people that, like, one year, we did right before the concert, when in the middle school, when some of the school concerts were coming in, parents could come over. We found that was less productive in terms of getting a lot of feedback, but it was high visibility, and it gave people the opportunity to see faces and to kind of try to figure out where to connect with us. So that's
Something like that, you might include like a slip of paper that they could write down something
Yeah.
that we would be able to
Yep.
address it, because they don't have the time, but
Or even a QR code to a Google form for them to submit something.
Yeah.
If they didn't feel like writing an
Yep.
email. Both of those sound great.
Yep.
I think that's helpful. I find a lot of people who don't have the time to devote to watching all the meetings or all the various committees in town don't necessarily understand how everything works. And so there's a misconception about what our role is and what we can actually do and what's the appropriate venue to approach when there's a question about something at the schools. And so finding ways to get that information out seems really valuable. Was there connecting with other school committees in the region?
So that is something that we have done. We did less of last year than we did the year before. We actually used to have a group, and it was like, again, because we couldn't have, without posting it with the other
Right.
committees, it would be like 2 people would go, and we did it with, there were a bunch of different districts we did it with. A lot of our ones we compare ourselves to, we did with Ashland, Westboro, we did also like Lexington, Wellesley, Weston, invited them and just sort of and during, when we were going through COVID, we found that a lot of people were facing some of the same challenges that we are, figuring out how to reopen, figuring out, navigating all the masking things, stuff like that. So that has been really helpful. I think as people have moved away from COVID, not just our school committee, but some of the other school committees, there are fewer shared challenges that people are looking at. It tends to be more, some are obviously more universal, but it's not the driving thing during COVID with so many, so
I
many
was
of
talking
the.
to a colleague this week who's on
Yeah.
the school committee in Belmont, and
Okay.
we were just informally, she's like, oh, what's going on with you?
Yeah,
Obviously, both facing budget situation under tight budget
yep,
That's
constraints,
the
and
thing
we
I
had
was
a little
thinking about.
camaraderie about that.
yeah, yeah. And there was I got to know a couple of the chair of the Holliston School Committee, for example, who's no longer on that, but it used to reach out, and I'd reach out to her. I had people that were reaching out to me from Holden and other places that it was good to be able to bounce things off of and ask, I see you have such and such policy in, we're looking to institute that policy. How did that work for you? So we could do it as a formalized to try to set up a group, or we could do it as trying to just set up resources between, like, identifying who members of different school committees are and try to build relationships like that. I'm open to either.
I think it sounds good.
Is there a communications plan that is that somewhere that I haven't found yet?
So that was something that we discussed. A piece of that was we didn't come up with a
Oh, okay.
big plan so much as we had a discussion about it, and a piece of that was talking about how people were using social media, people who had social media pages specific to the school committee, people that were talking on, like, Hopkinton Dad's group, some of the moms type group, stuff like that, and wanting things to go out through more official channels, but not wanting to say members can't engage on social media with people that way. That was I don't know if you remember finer details, but we didn't pass a big,
I actually need you to repeat what you just said, because it got lost.
okay, so I will apologize. Yep, so the conversation that we had last year, we talked about the use of social media specifically, and we discussed people who had their own pages that were discussing on their pages, because there were a couple of us that had school committee-specific pages. And then people who were commenting on group social media pages. We talked a little bit about the dangers of violating open meeting law and trying to be careful and aware of that. But the committee at the time did not feel like we wanted to make a directive to say you can or can't do this, and left it up to individuals to figure out how to.
Do other school committees engage on social media?
Yes.
Because it seems to me such a treacherous place.
That could be a topic of discussion if we get together, right? See what they do.
To have a discussion with other school committees.
Other school
Yeah.
committees about if they've had any plans about that or
Yep.
set any limits or,
Run into things.
yeah,
Yeah.
sure. I think there's been issues.
Okay, so back down, sorry. Yeah, I just want to make sure that I'm not missing anything and kind of, so this piece, the estate, yes, so we did talk with some of our new legislators. That was specific to James Arena DeRosa, who was new. He's been very supportive in general of Hopkinton, I think, in terms of reaching out proactively. He's been at a lot of events. He was at our town meeting one night. But I think it's always good to have those relationships, because in the past, it has been some of the legislators who have helped us to get in line for MSBA funding, things like that.
Yeah, he reached out to congratulate me
Yeah.
about joining the committee and said he'd love to chat at some time.
Yeah.
And also see how we can increase state funding that's coming towards Hopkinton.
I love that already.
Super
Yeah.
helpful.
So in terms of this piece, because I think pieces of this we've discussed, the office hours, as well as the listening tours, as well as connections with other school committees in the
Yeah.
region. The other piece that we tried to do, we weren't monitoring it, but was trying to make sure that we, as a school committee, got out to other events in the community just to talk with people. I don't know that we need to, I don't know, I don't want to police that or anything. I think people, it sounds like everybody's doing their own thing in the school committee, in the school community as a whole.
I think we should make a concerted effort to go on these bocce tournaments
Absolutely.
together.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I actually think there might be something more powerful about going as a group. It's,
Yeah.
if we're not conducting business,
Right.
it's not a problem to show up at a bocce tournament or
But
something.
we're not
like
allowed
that
to
show
stand
up.
next to each other. is
We
that
can
correct?
stand next to each other.
As long as we don't
Can't
talk
talk-
about
yeah.
schools.
Can't talk about things that are going to come before. you
No
know,
talking shop.
Talk
talk-
about
We talked
bocce.
about bocce, yes,
talk about it, yeah.
which I know very little about, so,
I,
you know,
all I know is it is an Italian sport.
it involves balls. And you throw.
Are there other things under here, pieces that people would like to take out because you don't think they're necessary, you don't like, or whatever, and pieces that you would like to keep in and/or add?
Do we think that we need to develop a communications plan there if the conversation occurred
I would
previously?
say
and it
no.
was sort of, yeah, it sounds like,
But I do.
try to be smart about how you do this, like, don't step in anything.
I do like the idea of making that a topic of conversation with
Yeah.
other school committees, but I would take
Right, and
that
so
out.
like, and connecting with other school committees, like how do they manage things like that? But since it doesn't sound like developing a plan happened. we should probably just- And then we don't have new legislators.
We don't,
So
so
maintain.
maintain, yeah.
Or
Establish and
nurture.
yeah, like
We
nurture.
have a senator and a representative, so.
But we could cross off the new, because
Right,
they're
but-
not new.
Yeah, just get rid of new.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm not established right now, we're
Like nurture back.
I'm good with maintain or nurture.
Right.
Nurture is,
a little more positive.
Would we also want to include in there, like, staff? Because sometimes
Yeah.
staff is the
Yes.
way to communicate,
Absolutely.
so
especially if you need things.
so,
I think that's, and their representatives, right? Yeah.
yes.
And
And
their staff.
particularly, I think with Senator Spocka, who is representing a larger area, sometimes the relationship with the staff is the way to get to.
Yeah.
I mean, it seems like there isn't anything to me, it doesn't look like there's anything that should be removed necessarily unless, I mean, ESBC 2 is still called that. Unless we wanted to say Charleswood there. I don't know. That's still the committee's name.
And we have both, do we want to note both projects?
Oh, with the addition.
I think that's good to discuss both. I also think the high-level campus planning was a process that we were going through
Actively at that time.
actively at that time. I mean, it's important to
I
always be,
think support and
yeah.
have awareness of, I don't know, of the project.
Well, I mean, I guess awareness and support of it.
What if that were to say, support district-wide planning in addressing enrollment and programming?
That makes sense.
I like that. I think 1 and 2 continue to be super important. Anything else that people think in terms of responsible stewardship of our assets would be a good. All right, I'm gonna scroll up to
Yes.
1. This one, we did not do as good a job at it, and we did discuss the fact that we weren't doing as good a job at it, discussing the events at the beginning of the school committee meetings. It was more kind of conversations that were happening. Hey, this is invitations that come out, things that we could go to.
So would that be something to consider adding in,
To our agenda?
even in like wrapped into liaison reports? That
Yeah.
even just we can
Upcoming
then, upcoming or things that we have gone to? Because again, people,
Yeah.
like, you know, then we have that record
Amanda
that
was
we're doing
really
it.
good at that. Just to give Georgette one more thing to do. Is it possible that we could get some kind of teaser of here are the events for the week? You know, kinds of things that might be good for us to go to, because there are things that I would like to go to, but I'm not aware of them, like jazz concerts and things like that.
Maybe I could get that into a single slide in the superintendent's report each time. And I think that there is a district-wide calendar. I know there's a district-wide calendar because we talked about it the other day, but I feel like the building principals now think that it feels unwieldy, because if there are many things, so many athletic contests, sometimes you have to read through 10
I-
athletic contests before you get to that jazz concert on a given day.
Yeah.
Or
it's
week.
It was quite long.
It is very long, isn't it? It's so
I
unwieldy.
think that would be a great thing if
I'm
we could have that.
ADD. Does that help?
Yeah, so just follow the colors. There are
Color
colors.
of the
That does
colors.
help
What
a
color
little
do I
bit.
need
Oh, so
for
their music is
artistic?
one color and
It doesn't
athletics is
tell me
another.
what the different colors are, though. There's
Oh,
no
okay.
key. That's too bad.
Find a music event and see what color.
Yeah. Arts and crafts, that's,
You can go into the calendar and customize your calendar, and you can unselect. If you go into school calendar, you can unselect athletics, as a for instance.
Oh, there's the legend.
okay,
you're
I'm
gonna
gonna
miss the
come
bocce
see
stuff,
you and you'll show me how to do it.
All right, so are there, we want to bring the calendars forward here.
Yeah.
Are there other pieces under the SMART goals? And this feels like a bigger thing than a diversity, equity, and inclusion. I'm not sure that's the right
Yeah.
category for it.
Right, are we really, I mean, are we really trying to meet DEI?
Yeah, that's
With
what I'm
those
not
things.
that's-
seeing.
Well, cultural events, perhaps.
Cultural events may not be happening on the school calendar, too.
Right.
I think when you talked, we have a unified bocce team, right?
Yeah. That's,
So that would be
That
a
was
really
inclusion.
good thing that would fit very well under that.
Yeah, there are some really big events that are nice if you go to, and I think that the kids feel supported when people come to them. So, for example, science fair.
Yep.
When our kids are doing science fair, the day that the judges are there, you know, people from school committee or faculty and staff can go through, and the kids are so articulate about their projects, or things like the POPs event, or, you know, bocce. Those are some of the, I think, more interesting and maybe, I think, more diverse ones, because each kid kind of finds their little niche in, you know, what motivates them in terms of clubs, activities, athletics. Robotics. Yes.
I grew up with Doug Scott, who's the robotics
Oh, my God, he's amazing.
teacher,
Yeah.
coach.
Super.
Yeah, so a couple of years ago, he told me about it and just went over
Oh, yeah.
and saw it, but I assume that would be another one that would kind of fall into that category.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. Right. Anything people want to add or change? Do people want to sit on this for a week, or do people want to vote this? To adopt it as goals?
Looks good to me.
Okay. Would you like
Me
to make a
too.
motion?
Make a motion to accept the, what are we calling it?
Amended.
School committee established goals.
Perfect. Motion by Chris, second by Kyla. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, that brings us then into the items by consensus.
Okay, as superintendent, I recommend the school committee approve the items by consensus as outlined in your agenda.
So moved.
Motion by Susan,
Second.
second by Jamie. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And then, is there somebody that would like to make a motion to adjourn?
Oh, can I compliment Georgette's minutes?
Oh, absolutely.
She's doing a really great job. I really appreciate the effort. I think it's really nice. And I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
Fabulous. Motion by Jamie, second by Chris. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. It is, we're adjourned at 8:21. Our next meeting date is the October 1st joint meeting with the select board, and I know there is a remote option for those who are not able to get in, because the select board always has that. I know you had, I did not
Yeah, I'm
respond
supposed to be out of town.
Yep, but there will be, and I can forward it to you.
All right, great.
And then we have October 10th is our next regular meeting here. So, all right, thank you all for tuning in, and have a good night.
And October 3 we're done.